Imagine this. You're standing on the deck of a wooden ship, the salty sea breeze whipping through your hair, and all around you is nothing but endless blue. The only sound is the creaking of the ship and the distant calls of seagulls. Now imagine that this ship, and the 3 others like it, are about to make history. This is the story of Christopher Columbus, a man whose journey changed the world, even though he never knew where he was really going. In 1492, Christopher Columbus set sail from Spain with 3 small ships, the Niña, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. His goal was to find a new route to the Indies, the wealthy and exotic lands of Asia, by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. But the world was a mystery then, and no one knew what lay beyond the horizon. Some people even believed the earth was flat, and that sailing too far would make you fall off the edge. Columbus, however, was convinced that the earth was round, and that he could reach Asia by sailing west. Before Columbus set sail, there was a heated debate among scholars about the size of the earth, and the distance between Europe and Asia. Some, like the ancient Greek astronomer Ptolemy, thought the earth was smaller, and that the distance between Europe and Asia was about 177 degrees of longitude. Others, like the French scholar Pierre Daly, believed the earth was larger, and that the distance was closer to 225 degrees. This might sound like a small difference, but it meant the difference between a feasible voyage and a suicide mission. Columbus, being a clever and determined man, chose to believe the more optimistic estimates. He read extensively, marking up books like the Imago Mundi by Pierre Daly, which suggested that the earth was smaller and that the Western Ocean, the Atlantic, was not as vast as many believed. He also drew inspiration from the travels of Marco Polo, which described the vast wealth and wonders of the East. On August 3, 1492, Columbus and his crew set sail from Palos de la Frontera, Spain. The day before, August 2, 1492, was a significant one for Spain. It was the deadline for the expulsion of all Jews from the country, and the same tide that carried the Jews to an uncertain future also carried Columbus toward his unknown destiny. Columbus's journey was not a straightforward westward voyage. He first sailed south to the Canary Islands, a strategic move to avoid the strong westerly winds of the North Atlantic. From there he turned due west, taking advantage of the northeasterly trade winds that would carry his ships toward the unknown. The journey was long and fraught with danger, but Columbus's crew was initially optimistic. They were sailing into the unknown, but they were also sailing toward the promise of wealth and adventure. As the days turned into weeks, the crew's optimism began to wane. They had never been so far from land, and the vastness of the ocean was overwhelming. The sailors were accustomed to coastal voyages, where they could always see land or a familiar landmark. Now they were in the middle of a seemingly endless sea, and the horizon stretched out in all directions. Columbus faced several challenges during the voyage. The Sargasso Sea, a vast area of the Atlantic covered in floating seaweed, alarmed the crew. They feared their ships would become stuck and never make it to their destination. Columbus, however, remained calm and confident, steering the ships straight through the seaweed. Another challenge was the crew's morale. As the days turned into weeks, the sailors began to worry about their return journey. They feared they would never find a way back to Spain. To keep the crew's spirits up, Columbus used a clever trick. He kept 2 logs, one for himself, which recorded the true distance they had traveled, and another for the crew, which understated the distance. This way, the crew would not become discouraged and mutiny. After 33 days at sea on October 12, 1492, a sailor on the Pinta spotted land. The crew erupted in cheers, and Columbus offered a reward to the first person to sight land. They had arrived at what is now the Bahamas, but Columbus believed he had reached the Indies. He named the first island they landed on San Salvador and met the native people, whom he called Indians, believing they were from India. Columbus spent the next few months exploring the islands, naming them and taking notes on their resources and the native people. He was amazed by the wealth and beauty of the lands he had discovered, but he was also driven by his mission to find a route to the riches of Asia. He did not realize that he had stumbled upon an entirely new continent, one that would change the course of history. Columbus's return journey was just as challenging as the outward voyage. He decided to sail north above the horse latitudes, to catch the westerly winds that would carry them back to Spain. However, the homeward passage was troubled by storms and rough seas. Despite the difficulties, Columbus's knowledge of the winds and his skill as a navigator got them safely back to Spain. When Columbus returned to Spain in March 1493, he was hailed as a hero. He presented his findings to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, and they were amazed by the new lands he had discovered. Columbus was granted a second voyage, and he set sail again in September 1493, with a larger fleet of 17 ships and over 1,000 men. This time, he was determined to explore more of the New World and establish a permanent settlement. Columbus's voyages opened up a new world to Europe, leading to the age of exploration and the eventual colonization of the Americas. His discoveries had a profound impact on both the Old World and the New World. The exchange of goods, ideas, and people between Europe and the Americas, known as the Columbian Exchange, transformed the world in ways that are still felt today. However, Columbus's legacy is not without controversy. His arrival in the Americas marked the beginning of a long and often brutal period of colonization and exploitation. The native peoples of the Americas suffered greatly under the rule of European colonizers, and many died from diseases, forced labor, and violence. The impact of Columbus's voyages on the native populations is a topic of ongoing debate and reflection. Christopher Columbus's journey was one of the most significant events in human history. He set sail in search of a new route to Asia, and instead discovered a new world. His determination, skill, and luck carried him across the Atlantic and into the annals of history. While his legacy is complex and fraught with controversy, there is no denying the impact of his voyages on the world we live in today. The story of Christopher Columbus is a reminder of the power of human curiosity and the unforeseen consequences of exploration.